Hey y'all, it's culinary mechanic time. So I wanted to stop, I don't know, maybe close your eyes, think for just a second about where you were at the end of 2020, early 2021, because we were in a pandemic. And, you know, wonders never cease. Today's guest on the show is a guy who decided to start a company. God bless him, in the middle of the pandemic, and he found a way to sort of take the Kickstarter sort of method of things, the crowdfunding, to local restaurants and help create community and help restaurants stay open, get open, expand, do the things they need to do for themselves with money from their community. So his name is Ross Chanowski. He's the founder of NuMarket, and it's a cool story, man. I dig it. So here we go. You're listening to the Culinary Mechanic podcast. I'm your host, Simon Zaturk, the founder of Culinary Mechanic, a restaurant advisory firm focused on making kitchens and restaurants run like well-oiled machines. This podcast, we aim to bring you insights, strategies, tools, and tactics, and sometimes just good old advice and stories that are going to help you run your restaurant better. I hope you dig it, because honestly, it's a real labor of love. One thing you could do that would help me a whole lot is to go anywhere that you listen to podcasts and leave a 5-star review. That'll help get the word out so that more people will hear this podcast, and hopefully we can help more restaurants run just a little better. Now please, enjoy the show. Today I am joined by Ross Chanowski of NuMarket. Welcome, Ross.
Hi, Simon. Thanks for having me. Excited about this.
Cool, me too. I think you got something that's pretty special, so I'm just going to give you the opportunity to tell us about it. I think me trying to like spit out a bio is kind of a silly idea.
Uh,
So tell us about NuMarket, and then if you would, we'll press on the gas and say, how did you get to that place?
Sounds
So
good. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity. Usually when someone asks me for my bio, I talk more about my dog than I do about myself, but I'm going to try to keep this one pretty short. How did I get here? I've kind of gone in and out of hospitality, food and drink, and things related to business and technology. And most recently, I was actually living in London in the UK, and I started a coffee business there. And as part of that, I was always meeting with, selling to, engaged with different types of restaurant, bar, cafe owners, people who had real independent businesses, community focused businesses. And on the flip side, I had a lot of friends and contacts who were in the technology space. And when the pandemic hit, I saw that the people in that second category, people in technology, bigger business, things like that, they were getting tons of funding for their software tools, for things that maybe we need, maybe we don't. And then everyone that I knew who was in food and drink was really struggling to get funding, financing, things that they needed. And that's where NuMarket came from. It was out of this desire to provide a better access to capital and connection for small businesses, for restaurants,
nice.
for coffee shops, for bars. And the quick explanation of NuMarket is it's community funding through crowdfunding, where anyone can contribute to a business's campaign. They're going to get more back than what they put in, 20% more actually, as credits to use towards the business over time. So if Simon's opening up Simon's new restaurant, I can put in $100. I'm going to get back $120 worth of credits to use on tacos and drinks and croissants and anything that you're selling.
Awesome. I love it. I mean, timing is everything, right? Like you just, I think that in the world you are able to look around at any given moment and go, "What's happening?" And I think I applaud you for seeing what was happening and taking some action, because I don't think there's anything more important. Um, Yeah, I mean, as you look at as you look at restaurants and the community piece, I mean, how's it all going? Like, how's NuMarket doing?
Yeah.
How is the
Well,
community doing?
yeah, it's really interesting that you brought up timing just before that. And it's interesting when I look back on the last, we've been around for 3 years, a little over 3 years. And 3 years ago was mid-pandemic, where
Right.
no matter where you were in the world, something was going on and it was something not positive. And back then there was this kind of clamoring of what should we do? What is the world going to look like? How are we going to keep our restaurant open? How are we going to ship product nationwide? How can we make this happen? And we can't find access to financing. That was 3 years ago. Now we get a very different story where the world's back open, but it's a lot more expensive than 3 years ago. And
Yeah.
if you're a small business owner, or really anyone, whether you're looking for a mortgage or you're looking to buy a new oven for your restaurant, interest rates, financing are through the roof. And that's what's going right now. We have so many people who call us and they say, we tried going to a bank or a tech provider to get funding, and they said, it's a 28% interest rate, which, if you're listening right now or watching, I hope your face is as what as mine is, because there's just no business that can sustain paying back, 25 to 40% of the funding that they get every year. And so how it's going in the world, I think for small business owners, it's really, really tough. How it's going for NuMarket is well, because we're filling a really big need and trying to create some positive change. So, we've been able to navigate this change in the world over 3 years, and we're still navigating it. And that's why people like you, Simon, are so important. You help other people to navigate the things that they need to do. Are you seeing the same types of shifts and problems this year as opposed to, a few years ago or a couple years ago?
Well, I think a lot of what I see is the shifts in attitudes of employees. That's the biggest one. I mean, 3 years ago, Thanos snapped his fingers, man. They went away. Um, you know, uh, there weren't people, and if there were people, they weren't the best people, right? Like the best people were pretty tired and crispy from the year and a half previous of the early pandemic stuff. And so I think that as the world, as you say, the world's kind of opened back up, and there's now plenty of people, but there's still this tension between what I'm getting out of it as an employee, because like I've been employee A has been burnt out a half a dozen times trying to work in the restaurant and do deal with people and deal with each other and still pay the bills, and that's stressful. And I think that there's just this shift around my employer needs to be better for me, and I think the idea of being an employer, being a cafe owner, a restaurant owner, whatever that may be, is just it's ultra daunting to me right now. Like
Yeah.
just the concept of how do I like how do I take care of these people in the way that is human and still run a business, because margins were tight before all this shit happened.
Yeah. For sure, for sure. Well, that's such an interesting topic. It's something we've been thinking a lot about lately is margins and people. And if we can help out on the margin side, can we help out on the people side? So what I mean by that is, I think we all know in some aspect of our life, if we're constantly thinking about keeping the lights on or keeping food on the table and the financial scarcity aspect of our lives, it's really hard to do or think about anything else. That's
Right.
going to take up all of our mental space, rightfully so. Uh, so with the margins, what we're trying to do is, make something a little bit easier and more possible to bring a little bit more kind of financial leeway to people so that they can spend the time, mental energy, and financial resource on the stuff that matters. Are my employees making enough to provide for their families? Do we have a good, benefits package? Can we stay open at the hours that we want to serve our community? Are our costs reasonable for everyone involved? Can we do the things we actually want to do without having to worry, am I going to have to pay the bank back this month and not be able to do it? And that's really what I think we're focused on right now.
That's, yeah. I mean, you brought up a conversation that has been in my household and in my general circle a lot lately, which is that the toggle between abundance and scarcity, right? And like getting yourself out of this. Oh, well, I mean, it's even deeper, right? It goes all the way back to like a poverty mindset, and then somewhere in the middle, like we grow up and it becomes a scarcity mindset, and
Totally.
then like being able to operate from like, this is great versus, oh shit, can I? You
Totally.
know? And I
Totally.
think for me, I think about like the community aspect of that. I love the idea that people in the community can go, well, I helped that restaurant.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that makes my heart like pitter patter when I hear things like that, and I see that's what NuMarket is sort of enabling. That's wonderful, because I think that it it creates some hope, right? It creates that intangible of like, oh, okay, we can do this. They're doing okay. They're doing okay, to my left and to my right, and so I'm probably going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's some genuine value in that.
Well, when you think
Um,
beauty of community also, and when you go to them, a true community you go to in the great times and the worst times, right? Like you go to celebrate the good times and you ask for help in the not so great times. And so if you have true community support and we can build strong communities, we get the best of both worlds. And I like to think about the like an anecdote of, let's say you've got a restaurant and uh, you just having an off night, maybe you got a new chef in the back and they really don't understand the recipe or the line, and something just gets wrong on a staple on the menu. If your customer who gets that food is someone who's been there, a million times, one of their favorite things, they're probably going to be like, "Hey, Simon, something's off tonight. Do you think maybe, somebody forgot the paprika, or, maybe you're using some milk that went bad or something like that." And then you go get a new one and everything is good. If you've got complete strangers who are coming in of, I'm going to judge this restaurant and I don't know who this is, they're going to leave a terrible review. They're going to ask for a big refund. You don't get that opportunity to have, a little bit of leeway. And community solves all of that. You just get a much more real interaction between people.
if you've ever found yourself saying, "There's got to be a better way to run a restaurant," we should talk. Imagine no rifts between the front and back of house, joint spotless, people are excited to be at work, and you're making the money you've dreamed of. Listen, Culinary Mechanic is here with the strategies, systems, and tactics to help you have the restaurant where everyone wants to be. We're talking about sustainable change, systems that you can implement and execute day in, day out. If you'd like to find out more about how Culinary Mechanic can help you run your restaurant like a well oiled machine, I'd like to invite you to use the link in the show notes to book a free 30-minute consultation call. Let's talk about it. Um, you just sparked something in the back of my brain around people. I was listening to another podcast because I think that's what we do nowadays, right? Like as a podcaster, I'm like, oh, I gotta listen to other ones so I get some perspective. But I was listening to a chef who's out of the South, and he was talking about growing up and growing all his own vegetables, and then he grew up to be old enough to like go to somebody else's house where they weren't growing all their own vegetables, and then getting into his first restaurant and realizing that they're going into the bag of lettuces that he's accustomed to harvesting himself, and it's like the removal of the humanity, the human aspect of all those things, and it's like, oh, that's right. And if we don't preserve certain pieces of that, we just get ordering kiosks and robots.
Totally, totally. And
You know,
nobody wants that, right? Every time I see an article about some new company getting funding to create a robot that does this thing, like take my coffee order, I just think, did anyone raise their hand and say, I really want that? Other than maybe a chain, coffee owner, the Starbucks of the world, who want to just lower costs to the absolute minimum. But I don't want that. I love going up and saying, "Hey, I want small coffee, half decaf, whatever it is." That's now people know something about me, half decaf in the morning, just so I don't completely over caffeinate later in the day.
regulate it, man. It's okay. It's good. I like it. Um, yeah, I mean, I for one am like the guy who goes up and looks at the barista's tattoos because they're always the best ones, right? Like a chef's tattoos. It's like, wow, what do you got? So and until I see tattooed robots, then we're not even going to talk about it. But I think that spins us that can spin us off into like if you if you drink Starbucks on a regular basis or a big chain, you consume from a big chain, that's the thing anyway, right? So I don't know that it matters. I personally would rather buy my coffee from somebody who I can identify,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, there's a place here in a little town of Renton, Washington, which is just to the south of where I live. And there's this local coffee place, and they are doing something unique nowadays, and they're actually roasting the beans right over there, right?
Cool.
And that's their roasting location for their four locations as a mini chain, and it's dope, right? And like you go over and talk to the guy roasting, and he's having a good day almost every day. Every
Love
time
it.
I talk to that guy, he's living his best life because
Love it.
he's tasting coffee for a living. Awesome,
Good deal. It's a good gig. I once
right?
once had a similar gig in the coffee world, and I miss it for sure. Um, it's funny you bring it up, that one of my favorite campaigns that we've run was a recent one. It's in the middle of Connecticut. It's called The Bean at 226. And it's run by Mel. And Mel took over the business from previous owner. And part of the campaign was to buy the building that they're in because the community just absolutely loves this place. And compared to some of the other cities where we've run campaigns, relatively, smaller place, smaller cafe, and they've got, I think it's something like 55 plus $1,000 from, hundreds of people. And the notes that everyone left of how much they care about it are fantastic. And you know, I grew up in Boston. I've got Dunkin' Donuts still pouring out of my veins. So it's no knock on where you get your coffee, but I think the ritual and the experience is important. And I still recognize the people who work at the Dunkin' by where I grew up, and they probably still know my order, and that's what it's about. But I just think independent businesses get that better than others.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's also the conversation to be had about culture, right? I think that with a lot of those, larger companies, you can go into certain places and you can get great service that is very personal because those people enjoy their jobs, and that makes me happy.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
I want to be a patron of some place or any place where I feel like the people are being treated well enough that they're able to go to work, make their money, take care of their family. And if that's Dunkin' Donuts, or I mean, if it's McDonald's, okay, right? If
Yeah,
that works, great. I think that I would prefer to give my money to Mel,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
But there's a time and a place for everything. I think that I'm not I'm you know I've been a chef my whole life, and I've been cooking my whole life, and I still like some fast food that I can get right now.
Totally,
And I
totally.
hand you the money and I'm gone.
Give me
And I
my
know it's not
burger,
the
I'm
best
good to
thing for
go.
me. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But like it hurts my heart when I see somebody who's not happy doing that job,
yeah,
you
for
know.
sure. Yeah.
And I go to some places and it's like they're, the little lady the little lady passing me the burger through the window, she's happy as hell. She's making money for her family, and you know, nobody's abusing her today. Awesome.
Well, I think what you're touching on and what we're going to touching on throughout this whole conversation is the idea of finding, place or identity or belonging somewhere. And that's where restaurants and small businesses serve such a big role in our lives. So whether it's, I'm sitting in South Florida and there's this incredible sandwich shop called La Spada, and they've got, I want to say three, maybe four locations down in Florida. And that place is just the best. And I'm talking
Awesome.
old school hoagie, sub, grinder, whatever it is, wherever you're from, freshly sliced meat. When you go in there, you're not finding identity as a, let's say, health food seeker, but you're finding identity in a different way. But then we have plenty of examples and places that I love where you go in and you feel like you're getting something wholesome and nutritious, or you're finding a safe place to just hang out. There's a million different things that you can do and be when you're at an independent business, but it's hard out there for those business owners. It's not
Yeah.
easy to get those places open and keep them open.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Um, I think for me, Culinary Mechanic as an entity, as a restaurant advisory, I try to do my best so that the people that are behind the scenes are, kind of working with their best foot forward so that they can do what they do in an efficient manner, so that they can, produce the product and get a hot plate of food out in front of people, and not like go home and just feel like completely what's the word, vacant. Right, like it should have
Yes,
some fulfillment to it. And I think some of that is understanding kind of how to work. And so it's tough. There's just no two ways about it. So there's so many things that I think that you and I and other business owners can do to help the restaurant industry. I love the fact that that NuMarket's got some mission to it, right? And it's have you kind of have you sat back and gone, okay, we're at year three. What is year 5 and 10? I mean, are there other angles to be had from this, or you know,
totally. Yeah, I would be lying to you if I and we as a team weren't often thinking about, what else can we do? What does year five look like? What does year 10 look like? But I think what's really important to us, and where I think we found, you and I have talked about sustainability for restaurants and for businesses in general, not necessarily environmentally, but sustainability in terms of, are we growing reasonably? Are we open? Are we serving our customers? For us, the way we stay sustainable is to just constantly listen, not tell our customers, here's what you need, but listen and say, what are you facing? So, as an example, right now, one thing that we just started piloting are what we call flash campaigns. So they're, 2, 3 day long campaigns, not the month long ones that we usually run, as sort of like an add-on funding to get something a little bit quicker. And the reason why we're doing that is small businesses who use payment processors are getting pushed these cash advances. I don't know, have you seen, like Square or Stripe or Toast, some of those payment processors are saying, we'll give you $50,000 right now and we'll take a percentage out of your sales. Have you seen those?
no, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And I think for some businesses, it really works. For all businesses, it's really enticing. And for a lot of businesses, it can put you in a hole. And so we're looking and saying, okay, there's clearly a need to have some stopgap funding right now. You need it within the next 72 hours. You need it within a week. Um, and we're trying to do that now. How can we do
Awesome.
something maybe a little bit less than what a traditional NuMarket campaign would be, but we can get it to you a little bit faster and help you to do something you really need to do. Like you got to get that new, fridge in because your last one broke. And if you can't keep supply in there, then you're not going to stay open.
Right. I like it. I love, I mean, understanding what is needed is half of business to begin with.
Totally.
Awesome. What a great set of conversations that kind of wormed its way through some fun stuff. I love it. Um, lately I've really been obsessed with this idea of, you know, kind of going through your day and figuring out what a win is. And so I've been asking people on the show, like, I guess, what is a win in your day? And like, how do you go about winning your day?
Cool. I love this question. I'm gonna say now it's a two-part answer. I'm sure I'll end up going with, 9-part answer.
It's okay.
Do all 9 innings. Well, we have the benefit and the challenge of very clearly seeing our impact on a day-to-day basis, right? Is funding coming into great businesses? We see the contributions that come in. I can look at the end of the day and say, this amazing restaurant just, was able to open because we brought in this amount of money for them. So it's easy for me to look at the end of the day and say, hey, that's a win. We just did something really great for some really great people. On a more personal level, I think if I feel like I put out more than I took in on a daily basis, that feels like a win. I really did something that I felt was important for others, for my community, more so than what I got out of it, especially through, my work, through the things that I do with my mind and my hands. And then kind of the flip on the other side, Simon, I know you and I have talked about being able to have more time to, enjoy our family and our friends and being outside and stuff like that. So if I feel like I really got a lot of time to do that and take more out of the world in that sense, then, I put out, that's also a win for me. I'm in South Florida right now, like I mentioned. It's been awesome to be able to, you know, go for long walks in beautiful weather and go to the beach and things like that. And
Nice.
that's the best. It's really easy to forget to do those things, to not be able to do those things. So when I get the chance to, it's really fantastic.
Good for you, man. I mean, I'll be honest. Lately, winning the day for me has been all about finishing at the time I say I'm going to finish.
Nice. I like
Right?
that.
Like I'm going to be done at 6 o'clock. Oh, it's 5:45. Well, let's create some urgency and some intention right now and spend that last 15 minutes and wrap up the day so that it's 6 o'clock and we're done. Because I spent so many years, honestly, not doing that.
Sure. Well, I was going to ask you now that you've, got your schedule in a much better place, what does the post 6 p.m. look like? What do you want? What's a win for you when it comes to what you do with your time when the laptop gets closed, when the podcasts are done being edited, all that?
You know, as a cook my entire life, I now cook 6 or 7 times a week for dinner. And that's pretty special because like I've in the last 2 years, I've really like almost created this like stellar, like dreamy game plan of the things I want to learn. Like I've been cooking my whole life, but oftentimes restaurant work sort of puts you in a box. And so, I mean, I've been working on my Indian food and I've been working on my dim sum and I definitely work on my sushi and work, just like, okay, let's do this. And, I've been working on just different things and different sauces and, it's summertime. So right now for me, it's all about like fresh herbs and salsa verde and like how many different things can I do with these 10 herbs?
Love
Right.
it.
But yeah, the win for me after 6 p.m. is cooking dinner and then knowing that my wife and I have the time to sit down and eat together, and that's pretty much every like we make it a point. We sit down and we eat together, and it is just my wife and I, and so that's super special.
That's awesome.
Because I can't tell you how many years that wasn't a thing.
I love
You
that.
know.
I love that.
So yeah. Hey, I just want to thank you so much for coming to play in the sandbox, man. Just tossing the ideas around, giving us the opportunity to put NuMarket out there so that my listeners and viewers can go, huh, there's a different way. I think that especially, if there's people listening in Boston, I hope that they understand that there's another opportunity to get the restaurant that, so many people are so excited to like, I'm gonna open a restaurant. You're crazy. I love you. Mwah. But if that's what you want to do, by all means, I think that there should be more than one route to do so.
Well, whether you're in Boston, the Pacific Northwest, Texas, New Mexico, Chicago, wherever, we're trying to make it a little less crazy to open up or maintain that restaurant, right? Help out in a way that's really fundamental so that it's a much better business to be in. And once the business is a little bit better, then the dream and the creativity can follow from there. So hopefully we keep doing that in a lot of different places. Simon, thank you very much for inviting me on. I love talking with you and your perspective with so many different experiences in this industry now. It's been fun to learn from you. So thanks for having me on.
Cool. Thanks, man. In the show notes, we are going to put how you can reach you, Ross, and NuMarket as well. And so to all you out there, I just want to say thank you so much for listening and watching, and just know that you're a part of a growing thing, because every week I open up the little website and I go, hey, look, there's more people. So life is good. So thank you guys very much.